You're born into a world of wind and steel. The year is around 1162, and the Mongolian steppe stretches endlessly in every direction, rolling grasslands, endless skies, and a chill that can kill in a single night. Your name is Temujin, and you're the son of a tribal chieftain. Your birth is said to come with omens. You grasp a blood clot in your tiny fist, a sign the shaman's whisper means you're destined to be a warrior. But destiny is a tricky thing. Your father, Yasuge, is a powerful warlord of the Borjigin clan. He's a man who walks with thunder at his back, feared and respected across the tribes. But even power on the steppe is fragile. One day, while returning from arranging your marriage, Yasuge accepts hospitality from the rival Tatars, his old enemies. They poison him. By the time he staggers home, fevered and vomiting blood, it's too late. He dies, and with him dies your family's status. You're just 9 years old. In the span of a single sunrise, your world collapses. The clan elders, those who once bowed to your father, turn their backs on you, your mother Holun, and your brothers and sisters. They take the herds, the weapons, the yurts. You're left with almost nothing. No protection, no food, just grass, bones, and the cold. You watch your mother change. She once wore silks and rode with pride. Now she wraps her arms around her hungry children, her back bent from foraging roots and trapping marmots. Her face grows harder. She teaches you survival with a whisper and a glare. If you don't hunt, you don't eat. She's your first general and your first heartbreak. You roam barefoot, dirt-crusted, scraping meals from the earth. Days blur into nights of howling wind. Hunger gnaws at your ribs until you stop feeling it, until you learn to ignore it like an old wound. Sometimes you steal from animals. Sometimes from people. Morality doesn't exist when your stomach's empty. One night, wolves circle the camp. You and your younger brother Kassar clutch spears barely longer than your arms. You don't sleep. You don't cry. You learn. But the real battle is not with wolves. It's with your own blood. Your half-brother Bekter grows arrogant and domineering. He hoards what little food you have. One afternoon, the air still with tension, you and your younger brother kill him. A stone arrow flies. The body falls. There's silence. You're not even a teenager, and already you've tasted blood deeper than hunger. You don't regret it. Not then. Not ever. Somehow, in the coldness of exile, a fire begins to build in you. A sense of injustice, not only for your family, but for every weak soul crushed by stronger hands. You begin to dream. Not of revenge. Not yet. But of power, of unity, of something better than this cruel, fractured world. You remember the few warriors still loyal to your father, those who left quietly rather than fight. You remember their names. You carry their faces in your mind like wanted posters. They will matter later. And then, like a drumbeat from fate, news reaches you. The clan that abandoned you is preparing for war. You have nothing, but you have rage. You have resolve, and you have something they'll never understand. You know how it feels to lose everything. You know what it takes to crawl from the dust and survive. At 13, you ride alone to the sacred Black Mountain, seeking out a distant blood relative, Togrul, Khan of the Karaites, a powerful ally, a gamble. And he listens. Maybe it's loyalty to your dead father, maybe it's a hunch, but he gives you a tentative nod. A small alliance is born, fragile like ice underfoot, but real. Your first thread of power since the world took everything from you. Still, you're not strong yet. You return to your family, bracing for whatever the steppe throws next. You're taller now, harder, hungrier in more ways than one. But the land isn't done testing you. One day, a rival tribe passes near your camp. They're watching. They know your father is gone. They smell weakness. And you're just getting started. The winters claw at your bones, and the summers offer no mercy. The steppe has no pity for the weak, and neither do its people. You are a teenager now, still without a title, still living in the ragged margins of a world ruled by horsemen and blood oaths. Every day is a test, and every meal is earned. You and your family live like ghosts on the steppe, shunned, scavenging, surviving. You sharpen your instincts as much as your arrows. Every sound in the grass could be danger. Every rider on the horizon could mean death. Your mother, Holun, becomes your fortress. She's not a warrior, but she carries a storm in her voice. She teaches you how to listen to the wind, how to read hoofprints, and how to twist weakness into a weapon. You watch her ration meat with the precision of a general allocating troops. She trains you in silence, and in that silence, a killer is born. You never forget what it felt like to be starving, to eat tree bark, to snare rats and pretend it was meat. The ache of that hunger doesn't leave your belly, it moves into your heart. That ache becomes ambition. But hunger isn't your only battle. Even in exile, politics creep into your world. Your bloodline still carries weight, and that makes you a threat. One day, while out hunting, a band of warriors from the Taichiud, former allies of your father, descend upon you. They beat you, bind your hands, throw you on a horse like a sack of grain. You are a prisoner now. They bring you to their camp and shackle you like livestock. A heavy wooden collar is locked around your neck, too wide to slip through a yurt door, too awkward to move without pain. You crawl like a dog. You eat scraps tossed into the dirt. Your body is humiliated, but your mind sharpens. And as you sit there, staring at the firelight dancing on tent walls, you begin to count faces. You memorize guard rotations. You listen to the cadence of the guards' conversations. You don't panic. You prepare. Then, opportunity. A young jailer named Sorkan Shira takes pity on you. Maybe he sees something in your eyes. Maybe it's guilt. Maybe it's fear. One moonless night, he slips the lock from your collar and whispers the words that open a new chapter of your life. Run. You don't hesitate. You vanish into the grasslands like a wraith, every heartbeat a drumbeat of freedom. You travel by stars, hiding in rivers, burying your scent in the wind. By dawn, you're miles away. You've escaped. But you know this, the world that shackled you won't stop hunting. So you decide something very dangerous, something most men on the steppe would never dare. You will stop running. You will become the hunter. You return to your family a changed man. Scars line your neck from the collar. Your eyes hold something colder than steel. You no longer speak of survival. You speak of retribution, of unification, of power. Your brothers rally to you. So do childhood friends, especially Boorchu and Jelme, boys who once shared rats with you under your mother's watchful eye. They don't come for gold. They come for you, because you endured the collar, because you came back. You begin gathering other outcasts, men who've lost status, honor, families, warriors who've been betrayed. They come to you not as equals, but as believers. They call you Temujin, but it doesn't sound the same now. It echoes. With this small band, you raid a nearby encampment. You don't steal livestock. You take weapons, horses, and men. You don't flee after the fight. You linger. You leave a mark. You make them remember your name. And then another test. One of your men betrays you. He rides in the dead of night to a rival chief and sells your location. You are nearly caught, surrounded in the night, but you fight your way out, losing a friend in the process. His body is buried in silence. The betrayal hardens you. Trust, you learn, is a blade with two edges. Over the next year, your raids grow bolder. You attack trade caravans, intercept messages, and coerce local herders to supply your camp in exchange for protection. What started as survival is becoming something else. Momentum. You begin speaking of unity. Not as a dream, but as a plan. No more tribal splits, no more endless blood feuds between cousin clans. You speak of one law, one banner, one Khan. Men laugh at first, then they watch you win, and suddenly they stop laughing. One night around a fire, you say, "We were rats once, but rats can become wolves." The men nod. No one forgets what it felt like to be hungry. That pain binds them to you. And then fate plays its hand again. You receive word that Berthe, your promised bride, whom you were pledged to as a child, is ready to be claimed. Her father honors the agreement made by your late father. She is living with the Angirat tribe, far to the east. You ride with just a few men. The journey is long and dangerous, but you know this. In a world where alliances are forged in marriage, Berthe is more than a wife. She is a future. When you meet her, she is as strong as the stories said. Sharp-eyed, curious, unafraid. You're still little more than a war-born outcast, but she chooses you without hesitation. The wedding is small. The promise it holds, immense. But happiness, like food on the steppe, is a fleeting thing. You return to your camp with Berthe, hopeful. But within weeks, your enemies strike again. They kidnap her. A rival tribe, the Merkits, raid your camp in the dead of night and drag her away like a trophy. And that's when you snap. You raise your sword not just as a man, but as a force of wrath. The boy who once starved under the cold sky is gone. In his place stands something new, something the world will learn to fear. You don't sleep. You don't eat. Berthe is gone, and with her, the fragile piece of your heart that remembered softness. The Merkits have taken your wife. No, your partner, your queen. And with that insult, they've declared war. You know what must be done, but you're not yet strong enough to do it alone. So you ride. Across the scorched grasslands and icy rivers, you make for the court of Togrul, Khan of the Karaites, the man who once gave you a second chance after your father's death. You arrive tired, but with purpose burning in your chest. Togrul listens. He knows the Merkits, and he knows they don't fear men like you, yet. But he respects the blood in your veins and the fire in your words. He agrees to help. Then another twist of fate. Jamuka, your blood brother from childhood, appears at Togrul's camp. You haven't seen him in years. He smiles like nothing changed, like the years of betrayal and exile never happened. You were once Anda, sworn brothers, drinking each other's blood as children and vowing loyalty for life. For now, you agree to fight together. For Berte. For vengeance. 3 warbands ride out, Karaites, Jamuka's followers, and your own small but hardened troop. 100 hooves pound the frozen earth. The sun gleams off your blades as you ride into the Merkit lands like a coming storm. When you find the enemy camp, it's unprepared. You don't give them time to scream. You strike at dawn with fire and fury. Yurts burn, warriors fall, and somewhere in the chaos, you find her, Berta. Alive, shaken, but not broken. You ride with her cradled in your arms, her eyes locked onto yours. She has endured just as you have. And now, nothing will stop you. The raid is a success. You return to the steppe with spoils and honor. Berta is restored to you, and in the months to follow, she becomes pregnant with your first son, Jochi. But the timing of his birth raises whispers. Was he yours? Was he the Merkits? You never speak of it publicly, because you know what matters isn't where he came from, but who he will become, and more importantly, what you will build for him. Flush with victory, you turn back to your blood brother Jamuka. For a while, you fight alongside him. Together, you conquer bandits and bring order to nomadic tribes. You dream out loud about a better world. But cracks begin to form. Jamuka still clings to the old ways, noble bloodlines, aristocratic rule, and tribal elitism. You, on the other hand, start promoting men from low birth, blacksmiths, goat herders, even slaves. All that matters to you is loyalty and ability. This challenges everything the old steppe nobility believes in, and it challenges Jamuka. Soon, your friendship dies, again, but this time, it dies in fire. Jamuka declares war. He brands you a traitor to tradition, a rebel against the steppe's ancient order. You gather your own supporters, clans who've had enough of tribal politics, warriors who want to follow strength instead of bloodline. The two of you meet in battle on the Dalan Baljut plain. Tens of thousands of men on both sides. Your army is smaller, scrappier, less seasoned. His force is organized and traditional. You fight with cunning, hit and run, and fierce loyalty. The battlefield becomes a whirlwind of horses, arrows, and screams. But you lose. Jamuka wins. His army is too large, his resources too deep, and he makes sure everyone knows what defeat looks like. He captures 70 of your men and executes them in the cruelest way possible, boiling them alive in giant cauldrons. You watch, powerless, as their screams rise into the night. You don't forget that sound, ever. And yet, this isn't your end. It's just another collar, another chain that you'll break. You retreat, you regroup, you disappear into the wilderness. But this time, it's different. Because now, men follow you not out of desperation, but out of belief. They've seen what you fight for. They've seen that you don't kneel, that you don't abandon, that you don't forget. Over the next 2 years, you rebuild your forces, you refine your ideas, you begin structuring your people not as a tribe, but as a nation in motion. You organize your warriors into decimal units, 10, 100, 1,000. Every man knows his commander. Every man knows his role. You outlaw kidnapping women. You ban the selling of children. You reward courage. You punish betrayal. And slowly, the wind starts to shift in your favor. Clans start defecting to your side. Old enemies become allies. You reward them not with plunder, but with protection. And unlike the nobles of the old ways, you don't let bloodlines determine your trust. You let merit decide. One by one, the steppe's scattered pieces begin to fall into place around you. And as the sun sets on another brutal Mongolian summer, you sit beside Berte. Your children sleep. Your sword is sharp. Your army is growing. And deep in your soul, you feel it. Something is coming. A storm. Your storm. You rise with the sun, and this time, the world is different. You are no longer Temujin the Wanderer, the slave boy in a collar. You are the flame that won't go out, and now people are beginning to realize it. Your army is no longer just a ragtag band of outcasts and rebels. It's a living machine, hardened by loss, bonded by loyalty, and trained with discipline the steppe hasn't seen before. You don't just raid anymore. You organize. You don't just fight. You command. But you're still not king. Not yet. To unify the fractured Mongol tribes under one banner, you'll need more than swords. You'll need alliances, old grudges settled, and the iron will to face betrayal again and again. So you do what the others can't. You adapt. You send emissaries to rival clans, offering peace where others demand tribute. You marry off sisters to powerful chieftains. You reward allies with captured horses, armor, and the one thing that always inspires loyalty: land. Men start whispering, Temujin keeps his word. That's no small thing on the steppe. The first major breakthrough comes when you confront the Jadaran and the Taichiud, old enemies, deeply rooted in aristocratic pride. You beat them not just with tactics, but with promises. Join me, and your sons will rise by skill, not status. Some laugh, some scoff, but others come. It begins slowly, then it builds like a prairie fire. You convene a Hurultai, a great tribal council, and under the vast blue sky, dozens of tribes gather. You sit among them, dressed not in silk or gold, but in leather armor, calloused hands resting on your sword hilt. You speak plainly. We can be one people, or we can die divided. Then you wait. The silence stretches until the air grows tight. But one by one, the banners begin to shift. First the Urud, then the Mongkud, then others. They pledge themselves not to a tribal chief, but to a leader, to you. And then, with a voice carried by wind and history, the council declares it. You are now Genghis Khan, universal ruler. You don't smile, you don't bow, you simply nod, because you knew this day was coming. And now that it's here, you waste no time. You begin reshaping the entire steppe. The first order: break the tribal structure. Gone are the days when bloodline determined command. From now on, your units, called Tumans, are mixed across tribal lines. A warrior from the Merkit rides beside one from the Angarat. Brothers in battle replace brothers by birth. You eliminate the old noble privileges. No one is above the law, not even your own sons. Next, you establish the Yasa, your code of law. It's brutal, yes, but fair. Theft is punished harshly. Cowardice in battle means death. But loyalty is rewarded beyond imagining. The men know the rules. They know you will enforce them. Always. And you don't just rule with force. You build a courier system, the YAM, stations placed across hundreds of miles to carry messages faster than any army could travel. Riders switch horses every 20 miles, their satchels marked with your seal. Information moves like lightning. Justice, too. You don't tolerate infighting. If one of your men attacks another without cause, he's executed, no exceptions. If a soldier steals from a civilian, he's lashed in front of the entire camp. You stamp out chaos with precision. And now, with the Mongol steppe under your thumb, you prepare for what no Khan before you has dared to imagine: conquest beyond the grasslands. But first, you look back, not with nostalgia, but with strategy. You call your generals: Jelme, who saved your life with his own blood; Subutai, the boy genius who would soon become your hammer; Jebe, once your enemy, now your most loyal executioner; Boorchu, who has stood by your side since childhood. You tell them, we ride east. Why? Because the Western Xia kingdom, Xixia, is wealthy, fat with trade, and soft with comfort. And you need a target that will do two things: test your new army and teach the world that Genghis Khan does not stop at borders. You march with over 30,000 men. The Xixia are confident in their walled cities and desert forts. They've faced nomads before, but they haven't faced you. You lay siege with creativity. You build siege engines, borrowed from Chinese engineers now working under your command. You divert rivers. You cut off supply lines. You fake retreats to lure them into traps. The cities fall, one after another. The king of Xixia begs for peace. You accept, on your terms. He agrees to become a vassal. He pays tribute. You don't burn the entire kingdom to the ground. Yet, your men return to the steppe richer and more confident than ever. And you? You look west. Because beyond Xixia lies the Jin dynasty, the true masters of northern China, holders of vast lands, great cities, and unimaginable wealth. But you don't attack just yet. You watch. You learn. You wait. Because patience, you now understand, is as much a weapon as the sword on your hip. The world does not yet know what's coming, but it will, because the boy who once hunted rats is now a king of kings, and you are not done. You are only just beginning. Word count, waiting. The fires of your rise haven't dimmed. In fact, they're spreading. Now, with the Mongol steppe unified and the kingdom of Shixia kneeling at your feet, your eyes turn to a greater challenge, one that towers behind massive walls and 1,000 years of arrogance. The Jin dynasty. They rule from Zhongdu, deep in northern China, and their emperors believe the nomads of the steppe are little more than flies. They have crossbows, cavalry, fortresses, and an army that numbers in the hundreds of thousands. But they have no idea what you've become. You start the campaign with a lesson in fury. One of your messengers is murdered by a Jin border official. No warning, no apology, just silence. To them, you are a barbarian, not worth the ink of diplomacy. You send another message, this time not in parchment, but in hoofbeats. You launch a three-pronged invasion with nearly 90,000 warriors. Your army is no longer just Mongols. It's a swirling mix of Turks, Tatars, and steppe allies, drilled in discipline and fed on revenge. And you bring not just speed, but science. Siege engineers from captured Chinese cities now serve under your command. They build catapults and siege towers, design mobile barricades, and craft weapons that spit fire into wooden gates. You no longer ride like a raider. You march like an empire. You split your forces across multiple fronts. One group sweeps through Shaanxi province, leveling fort after fort. Another attacks from the north, harassing Jin cavalry lines and severing supply chains. And you, personally, lead the central assault like a thunderhead crashing into the plains. Your enemies think their walls will save them, but you don't play by their rules. You encircle cities, starve them out. When they beg for terms, you offer mercy, then punish betrayal with annihilation. Take Zhongdu, the Jin capital. It's a fortress of stone and pride, surrounded by triple walls and defended by 100,000 soldiers. But you don't rush in. You siege it for months. You dig trenches, redirect rivers, build platforms taller than their towers. You cut off every route for food, water, and hope. Then, when the time is right, you strike, not from one side, but from everywhere. It's not just a military victory. It's psychological. The Jin elite watch as your banner rises over their unbreakable city. They kneel, not out of honor, but out of fear. You accept their surrender, for now. But you don't just crush cities. You offer something else, order. In place of collapsed governments, you install governors loyal to you. You reopen trade routes, protect merchants, enforce your yasa, and allow religious leaders, Buddhist, Muslim, Christian, Taoist, to practice freely. You don't care about faith. You care about function. And soon, people start to talk. Genghis Khan punishes bandits. His soldiers don't steal from markets. You can ride from the desert to the mountains and never fear the road. Ironically, the so-called barbarian is bringing stability. But it comes with steel. In one town, a Jin governor tries to bribe your troops to abandon the campaign. You send him back, headless, on horseback. The message is clear. There is no compromise with betrayal. As your campaigns stretch deeper into the Jin territories, your legend grows. Even Chinese generals begin defecting. They bring maps, supply caches, and reinforcements. One commander surrenders an entire fortress without a fight after reading your edicts posted outside the gate. Not everyone joins, of course. Some cities resist, some to the death. And when they do, you make an example. Cities that kill your envoys or resist surrender are razed. Their names are scratched from maps, their soil salted. It's brutal, but effective. Because for every town that burns, 10 more surrender without a fight. Then something unexpected happens. You pull back. Not because you're weak, but because you're smart. You know that conquest isn't just about charging forward. It's about supply, climate, and exhaustion. Your men have been campaigning for years. Horses are thin. Arrows are scarce. And worst of all, the Shixia have started to rebel. So you regroup. You return to Mongolia, bringing with you mountains of gold, bolts of silk, and enough spoils to feed the steppe for a decade. Your men are heroes. Their families sing their names in tents lit by oil lamps. Boys are named after your generals. Girls after your queen. But you don't rest. Back home, you overhaul your command structure again. You introduce new promotions based entirely on battlefield merit. A former shepherd now commands 1,000 riders. An ex-prisoner now oversees logistics. And something else changes. You begin to think beyond Mongol lands. Because now, your wars aren't just about revenge or reclaiming lost honor. They're about something bigger, a dream, a world united, not by bloodlines or religion, but by law and loyalty. A system where even a slave can become a general, and even a king can be punished. You look out over your homeland, the same fields where you once ate rodents to survive. Now you're the lawgiver, the warlord, the Khan. And the world is starting to understand that Genghis Khan doesn't fight for land alone. He fights for order. The campaign against the Jin has bloodied your blade, but your empire is only sharpening. You've shown the world that steppe warriors can crack walls, break cities, and forge law from chaos. And now, just as peace begins to settle over your eastern borders, disaster strikes where it hurts most. Berte is the one who tells you. The western tribes are stirring. The Merkit, still bitter over their defeat years ago, have joined forces with the Naiman and Taichi Ud, your oldest enemies. They're gathering armies, plotting alliances, trying one last time to crush your name beneath theirs. But you don't flinch. You've seen betrayal before. You've bled under shackles. And now, you're not a hungry boy scraping bark from trees. You're Genghis Khan. And it's time to extinguish the old ways, once and for all. The West must burn. You call a Kuriltai, a council of generals and chieftains. You lay out the plan, not as a tyrant issuing commands, but as a tactician outlining the final purge of division. After this, you tell them, there will be no more rival Khans, only the Mongol nation. The army that rides with you is massive, tens of thousands strong, loyal, battle-hardened, and organized with ruthless efficiency. Your Tumans move like rivers of iron across the steppe. Scouts sweep ahead like wind. Supplies roll behind on wheels dragged by oxen. First target, the Merkit. You find them in the upper reaches of the Irtysh River. They've grown soft since their last encounter with you, hiding behind hastily assembled alliances and false confidence. You crush them in a week. Their army scatters. Some try to run to the north. You send Subutai, your shadow general, to chase them. They never return. Next, the Taichiud. You know their leaders well, men who once held you prisoner, who laughed as you crawled through dirt in a collar. Now, they face your judgment. You trap their army in a gorge, encircling them from high ground. Your archers rain death from above. Horses trample corpses below. In the end, their Khan is dragged before you in chains. You look into his eyes. He doesn't beg. He knows you too well. You nod once, he dies with honor, but he dies. Only the Naiman remain. They are the strongest of your old rivals. Their Khan, Taiyang, is ambitious but cautious. He hesitates to meet you in open battle. So you do what you do best. You provoke. You send raiding parties to harass his borders. You pretend to retreat. You bait him with rumors of division in your own ranks. And when he finally moves, when he marches out to crush what he thinks is a fractured army, you spring the trap. The Battle of the Altai Mountains is not just a victory. It's a symphony of violence and precision. You split your forces into three wings. Jebei leads the left, Subutai the right, and you charge the center like a thunderbolt. The Naiman lines crumble. Taiyang flees, only to be betrayed by his own son, who delivers his head to you in exchange for mercy. You accept, then quietly have the son executed, because treachery has no place in your empire, even when it serves you. When the dust settles, the entire western steppe is yours, all rivals crushed, all threats erased. You ride through the valleys where you once starved, now escorted by thousands. Standards ripple behind you. Songs of victory echo into the sky. But this isn't just conquest, it's transformation. You don't just loot the defeated tribes, you restructure them. You split their warriors into your own units. You redistribute their herds to widows and loyalists. You place administrators in their former camps, men who report directly to you. And the people? You feed them, protect them, tax them, fairly. You're not building an empire of ash. You're building a system. To the Mongols, you are more than a king. You are the axis of their world, the one who ended the age of endless blood feuds and delivered something terrifying and beautiful, order through strength. But inside, you still carry the ghost of that boy in the wooden collar. And so, you do something no Khan has ever done. You codify mercy. You create safe havens for children orphaned in war. You demand that soldiers who mistreat civilians be executed. You instruct your judges. Yes, you have judges now to weigh guilt not by bribes, but by evidence. and the people notice. They speak your name with fear, but also with awe. Because while you are ruthless to your enemies, you are just to your subjects. Even those who once fought against you find a place under your rule if they can prove themselves. Your sons, Joki, Chagatai, Ogade, and Tolui, ride with you now, learning not just the art of war, but the burden of rule. You test them. You challenge them. You remind them that they were born in tents, not palaces. One night, around a smoky fire, you speak to them plainly. An empire founded by the sword must be held with wisdom. They nod. They don't understand it yet, but they will, because soon they'll inherit a world unlike any the steppe has ever known. A world shaped by one man's hunger for justice, for power, and for something even greater, unity. And now, with the steppe quiet behind you, you face a new frontier. The West. Beyond the mountains lie cities rich in gold, cloaked in arrogance, and drunk on distance. They think Genghis Khan is just a name from the East. Soon, they'll know it's a storm. The steppe is yours now, unified, tamed, and humming with discipline. You've forged it into a weapon, and you've hammered out the dents of tribal chaos. But conquest was never your end goal. It was your foundation. Now comes the true test. Can the greatest war machine the world has ever seen operate beyond the grasslands? Can Mongol thunder shake the cities of Persia, the deserts of Central Asia, and the edges of the Islamic world? You're ready to find out. Your next move begins not with a sword, but with silk and ink. The Khwarezmian Empire lies to the southwest, a vast kingdom stretching from the Caspian Sea to the Hindu Kush. It's rich, cosmopolitan, and ruled by a paranoid sultan who believes he holds the edge of the world. You don't come as an invader, not yet. You send a caravan first, hundreds of merchants under your protection, loaded with fine wool, spices, silver, and even secret scouts posing as traders. They ride through the gates of Otrar, a Khwarezmian border city, expecting welcome, or at least civility. Instead, they find treachery. The local governor accuses them of spying, seizes the goods, and executes the merchants. No trial, no warning, just blood in the sand. You are furious, but still restrained. You send 3 ambassadors directly to the Sultan, demanding justice and punishment for the rogue governor. What does he do? He insults you again. He has one of your envoys beheaded. The others are shaved bald, an unspeakable humiliation, and sent back alive. That's it. The Sultan just handed you your next war. You summon your generals. Jebe, the arrow of your vengeance. Subutai, the master of maneuver. Tolui, your youngest son, eager to prove his fire. This is no longer trade, you tell them. This is retribution. You don't invade with 1 army. You unleash 4. 2 ride through the snow-choked Tian Shan Mountains to strike from the north. 1 barrels through the desert. Another cuts west across rivers and through fortresses. You don't want a victory. You want a collapse. City after city falls. Your troops move like ghosts, appearing in places no enemy thought possible. The Khwarezmians falter. Their generals fight among themselves. The Sultan, once so smug, flees eastward like a rat, abandoning his people. And you make an example of Otrar, the city that started it all. You lay siege for 5 months. Then you break the walls, storm the streets, and seize the governor who executed your merchants. You don't kill him quickly. You pour molten silver into his eyes and mouth. Because greed, you say, must meet poetic justice. But even amid fire and steel, you show your paradoxical code. Cities that surrender? You spare them. Towns that open their gates? You let their people live. You install governors, rebuild trade lines, and leave behind law. You don't want rubble. You want infrastructure. Still, some cities resist, particularly Bukhara and Samarkand, the jewels of the empire. Their walls are thick, their soldiers confident. But they make one fatal mistake. They underestimate how far you'll go to win. You cut their water supply. You unleash captured engineers to undermine their walls. You ride into their mosques and declare, "I am the punishment of God." If you had not committed great sins, God would not have sent a punishment like me. And then you show mercy to the innocent and wrath to the powerful. You don't rule through fear alone. You rule through memory. Because everyone who watches your banners rise over burning cities will remember what happens when you betray Genghis Khan. And more importantly, they'll remember what happens when you don't. With the Khwarezmian Empire in ashes, you turn your attention to the man who started it, the Sultan himself. You chase him across deserts, mountains, and crumbling strongholds. He flees from city to city, each one more desperate than the last, until finally he dies on a lonely island in the Caspian Sea. No crown, no army, no tomb, just obscurity. You don't even bother to retrieve his corpse, because history has already erased him. And now, with Central Asia under your control, you pause, not to rest, but to organize. You issue new edicts, protection for traveling merchants, religious freedom for subject peoples, and harsh penalties for banditry. You understand that war wins land, but systems hold empires. Your mounted postal relay, the YAM, is now so efficient that messages can travel over 200 miles a day across your domains. Trade flourishes, markets blossom, languages blend. The Mongol Empire is no longer a whirlwind of destruction. It's a functioning civilization. And the world begins to whisper. From the Mediterranean to the Hindu Kush, from China to Armenia, they all ask the same question. Who is this man who came from nothing, who rules with iron and law? The answer is becoming clear. You are not just a warlord. You are a force of history. A new kind of conqueror, one who rides not only with armies, but with intent. And though the dust hasn't yet settled, one thing is certain. You didn't just cross into the Muslim world. You shattered it. And now the West knows your name. You stand tall on a windswept ridge overlooking your newly won lands. Beneath you, 1,000 tents flutter like silver fish scales, each one bearing the mark of your people, the wolf banner, the symbol of the eternal blue sky. You've done what no Mongol before you ever dreamed. United the steppe, crushed dynasties, and leveled empires. But now it's time to become more than a conqueror. You must become a legend. The year is 1206. After years of brutal warfare and calculated diplomacy, the great Mongol Council, the Kurultai, summons every noble, every tribe, every clan that once fought and bled against one another. Now, they gather not as enemies, but as your people. You arrive not in golden robes or gilded armor, but wrapped in wolf furs, hardened leather, and the scars of every campaign. You step before them, not as a prince, but as the man who clawed his way from exile and hunger to dominate the steppes. Then the words are spoken. You are Genghis Khan, universal ruler, God-mandated leader of all under the sky. The name ripples across the plain like thunder, and with it, your transformation is complete. No longer are you Temujin, the slave boy scraping for roots in a frozen forest. You are now the anointed blade of Tengri, the eternal blue sky. And your empire? It's not just a federation of tribes. It is divinely sanctioned. You waste no time turning this spiritual coronation into practical dominance. First, you redesign the government. No more power games between bloodline nobles. You declare that leadership must be based on merit, on loyalty, talent, and results. A blacksmith's son can now command thousands if he's brave. A shepherd can become a general if he's smart. Tribal identity? Secondary. Mongol identity? Everything. Next, you establish your yasa, a code of laws meant to unify an empire of many tongues, faiths, and customs. The rules are strict. Stealing a horse? Death. Disobeying an order in battle? Death. Attacking a foreign envoy? Death. But converting to any religion? That's allowed. Worshipping your ancestors? Protected. Speaking your language? Encouraged. Why? Because you're not building a kingdom for Mongols alone. You're building a civilization that can stretch across the known world. You issue orders to census every conquered city. You establish tax systems that are harsh but predictable. You protect merchants with armed escorts. You even allow conquered nobles to retain power, as long as they bow to the Khan. But most radical of all is your message. Loyalty trumps lineage. Even your own generals are expected to kneel when the Kurultai speaks, and they do, because you've made them believe that their loyalty is to something greater than blood. It's to an idea. It's here that one of your most trusted friends, Jebe, speaks frankly to you by the fire. You've done more than unite us, he says. You've made us unstoppable. And he's right, because with every system you build, you erase the old barriers, tribal, linguistic, cultural, and replace them with one banner, yours. But while the empire takes shape, the fire in your heart doesn't cool. You still remember what it's like to starve. You remember the wooden collar around your neck. You remember watching stronger men humiliate your mother. And because of that, you will never let your people become weak again. You drill your armies constantly, train your sons like soldiers, and rotate leadership to keep ambition in check. You declare that all men must train in archery, horse riding, and tactics, because peace will not last, and the world beyond your borders is always watching. But as the system stabilizes, a new wind begins to blow, not from China or Persia, but from the farthest west. You begin hearing whispers of golden cities on the edge of the Caspian, of wealthy Christian kingdoms in Europe, of armored knights and stone castles, all ripe for conquest, all ignorant of the storm rising in the east. And so you prepare again. You gather scouts fluent in foreign languages. You send merchants deep into Russia, into the lands of the Franks, the Byzantines, and beyond. You're no longer just sending troops, you're sending tentacles. You want to know how these kingdoms fight, how they trade, how they defend. Why? Because when you finally turn westward, you want no surprises. And even while doing all this, you don't forget the spiritual. You consult shamans, astrologers, and priests of every major religion. You even debate Islamic scholars, listening with curiosity rather than contempt. Your open-mindedness isn't weakness, it's strategy. Because in your empire, fear will bring submission, but vision will bring permanence. Back in the heart of Mongolia, you commission the construction of Karakorum, your capital. Not a golden palace, but a fortified city of trade, worship, and rule. A place where Muslims can pray next to Buddhists and Chinese engineers design catapults for Mongol campaigns. It is unlike any capital the steppe has ever seen. You walk its wide roads in the evening, the stars glittering above, and listen to the sounds of your empire. Hammer strikes, camels grunting, 100 tongues whispering news from every corner of Asia. And you smile, because the boy who once stole scraps from wolves is now a ruler of many worlds. And deep down, you know this is just the beginning. The winds are shifting. You can feel it in your bones. Soon, your name will echo not just across Asia, but across the entire world. You ride at the front, wine slapping your face like a challenge. The ground beneath your horse thunders with the might of 100,000 hooves. You're not marching toward some tribal grudge or minor skirmish. You're riding to break empires. Ahead lies the Xixia, the Tangut kingdom that once sneered at Mongol messengers. Beyond them, the mighty Jin dynasty, fortified behind colossal walls and decadent palaces. Both kingdoms once treated the Mongols like mere barbarians. Now they'll learn what it means to mock a Khan. Your empire is no longer a dream stitched together with promises and blood oaths. It's a living engine of war, efficient, relentless, and terrifyingly fast. Your scouts, trained to move like shadows, ride ahead of your army by hundreds of miles. They chart every river, pass, and ambush point. They learn local dialects. They bribe peasants. They send birds to deliver messages back to you daily. And when you strike like lightning. The Xixia don't stand a chance. You launch coordinated assaults on their outposts, using signal fires and flag codes to direct troops with pinpoint precision. Your soldiers don't rely on brute strength. They use speed, timing, and terror. You fake retreats to draw out defenders. You use captured engineers to design siege towers taller than city walls. By the time Xixia realizes you're not just raiding, but invading, their capital is under siege. They beg for peace. You accept, for now. But you mark their betrayal for later. Because there's bigger prey in your sights. The Jin dynasty controls northern China. They've ruled for over a century, built armies of armored elites, and believe their Great Wall makes them invincible. You intend to prove otherwise. Your army divides into multiple columns, moving like separate snakes across the grass. Each group hits different cities simultaneously. The Jin are forced to split their forces, weakening their defense. That's when you pounce on the capital. You don't just lay siege, you surround it entirely, cutting off water, food, and light. You catapult diseased corpses into their wells. You dig trenches to undermine their walls. You attack during snowstorms to blind archers and during festivals to catch them drunk. When the gates finally crack, you let your generals loose. But here's the twist. You don't destroy the city completely. You sack what's needed. You send a message. But you also leave roads, merchants, and artisans intact. You want the survivors to carry stories of your wrath, yes, but also of your order, of how a Mongol empire doesn't mean chaos. It means certainty, law, and control. The Jin court retreats south, scrambling like rats on a sinking ship. You let them flee, temporarily. The point isn't total annihilation yet, it's fear. You want every remaining Chinese kingdom to look at the Mongol banner and tremble. But not everything is easy. During your second campaign against the Jin, the war drags. Disease spreads among your troops. Some of your generals get arrogant, assuming victory is guaranteed. You punish them harshly. You demote one of your oldest friends for failing to act fast enough in a siege. No one is above the code, not even family. Meanwhile, the Jin build alliances with rival kingdoms. They start to adapt. They fortify better. They counterattack with flame weapons and chained cavalry. You suffer real losses. So you adapt too. You recruit Chinese siege engineers. You adopt gunpowder rockets and flame-spitting arrows. You don't just copy tech, you perfect it. You also begin to integrate conquered soldiers, not just as slaves or fodder, but as auxiliary units. Koreans, Uyghurs, Khatans, they all wear your uniform now. If they prove loyal, they rise. If not, they vanish. To manage this complexity, you develop a decimal command system. 10 men answer to one leader. 10 of those leaders report to a centurion, and so on, up to tumens, units of 10,000. This structure means orders flow fast, and betrayal is caught early. Every man knows his place. Every order is clear, every punishment is public. And still, you press southward. By 1215, you reach Zhengdu, the fortified capital of Jin, modern-day Beijing. It's one of the richest cities in the world. You surround it for months, starving it of food, light, and hope. Eventually, the gates collapse under relentless bombardment. What follows is apocalyptic, a purge that leaves the city half-standing and fully broken. But again, you leave it behind, because your mission isn't just destruction, it's domination. Every battle sends a message. You can surrender and survive, or resist and disappear. Across China, cities begin surrendering before you arrive. They send gifts, daughters, architects, scholars. They lower their walls, open their gates, and bow to the sky, the eternal blue sky, your God, and by extension, you. But not everyone bends so easily. A few holdouts rise in the mountains and remote fortresses. You don't tolerate rebellion. You return to Xixia, the kingdom that once begged you for peace, and then refused to send reinforcements during your Jin campaigns. You crush them with finality. Cities are flattened, palaces burned, nobles executed. This time, there will be no forgiveness, because a lesson must be made. You're no longer just claiming territory. You're teaching a philosophy, one where the Khan is the axis of the world, one where order and loyalty are sacred, and one where resistance is a sin punished by fire. As you watch the smoke rise from the last stronghold of Xixia, you speak softly to Subutai, your brilliant strategist. It's not enough to conquer lands, you say. We must conquer minds. And that's exactly what you're doing. From the Great Wall to the Yangtze, your name is whispered like thunder in the distance. Some pray to it, others flee from it. But no one dares ignore it. The boy once shackled in a wooden collar now stands atop the ashes of ancient dynasties. And the horizon still calls. The sun bakes the endless dunes of the Kizilkum Desert. Sand swirls in choking spirals, wind howling like ancient ghosts. But you don't flinch. You're driving westward now, away from the fallen cities of China, toward the edge of the known world, toward a new empire that dares to insult the Mongols, the Khwarezmian Empire. This wasn't your original plan. You didn't wake up one morning wanting war with Persia. In fact, you sent merchants first, hundreds of them, bearing silk, furs, and gold, asking politely for trade routes and mutual peace. But the Khwarezmian Shah, Ala ad-Din Muhammad, didn't just turn them away. He murdered them, burned alive, beheaded, imprisoned. Even your ambassadors, protected by sacred diplomatic custom, were slaughtered. That wasn't just arrogance, it was heresy. And you vowed to punish it. So now, across the scorching plains and jagged mountain passes of Central Asia, you're unleashing a storm the world has never seen. You lead an invasion not of tens of thousands, but over 200,000 hardened warriors trained in the crucible of Chinese wars. Your army is sleek, disciplined, and terrifyingly fast. Khwarezm is vast, with high-walled cities like Bukhara, Samarkand, and Urgench, each with its own pride and military tradition. But they're not ready for you. Because you don't march into war, you explode into it. Your genius isn't just in fighting battles. It's how you weaponize time itself. The Shah expects you to move slowly, so you do the impossible. You split your army, sending Subutai and Jebi, your finest generals, through the frozen passes of the Hindu Kush, attacking from a direction thought impassable in winter. When they break through, it's like ghosts riding out of a blizzard. Meanwhile, you approach from the east, crossing the desert with brutal speed. Your men ration water with the discipline of monks. They burn camel dung for heat. They fight while coughing blood. And then you strike Bukhara, a city rich in scholars, gold-domed mosques, and arrogant leaders. You surround it, not with brute force, but with whispers, cutting off messengers, bribing sentries, turning factions inside. When your banners rise at the city gates, panic spreads faster than your arrows. The defenders, numbering tens of thousands, are no match. You break into the city and head straight to the mosque, not to burn it, but to stand on the pulpit. You address the people, not with threats, but cold clarity. If you had not committed treachery, you would not be in this situation. The message is clear. This wasn't fate. It was your choice. Samarkand, the jewel of the empire, is next. It boasts massive double walls, thousands of defenders, and elite Persian cavalry. But you've seen worse. You bring siege machines, learned from Chinese engineers. You hurl fireballs into the night sky. You dig under walls, collapsing towers from below. The defenders collapse into chaos. Some betray their own commanders to save themselves. Others beg for mercy. You give it, selectively. Those who resist are wiped from the map. Those who surrender become part of your growing machine. But it's urgent that tests you most. The city resists for months. It's a labyrinth of canals, bridges, and stubborn defenders. You lose men, you lose time, and you lose patience, so you decide to make an example. When the city falls, you allow your troops to execute full vengeance. The river runs red. Walls are pulled down stone by stone. The very soil is salted. It's not war, it's erasure. And still the Shah flees, retreating farther west, hiding behind mountain fortresses and rivers. But you're not letting him go. You send Subutai and Jebe after him in a high-speed pursuit across thousands of miles, into the Caucasus, through Armenia and Georgia. They defeat armies 4 times their size, outmaneuver entire kingdoms, and circle back without losing a single major battle. No one has ever done this before. You're not just destroying armies, you're restructuring geography. The entire concept of borders, kings, and control is being rewritten by your movement, your tactics, your wrath. But even you know war can't last forever. So you begin building. Across the former Khwarezmian lands, you establish governors from diverse backgrounds, some Mongol, some Persian, even former enemies who proved useful. You protect merchants, you restore caravan routes, you issue Yasa, your unified code of law, to bring stability in place of chaos. You even protect religions, Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, so long as they don't challenge your authority. And through it all, you spread one simple rule. Betrayal will be punished beyond imagination, but loyalty will be rewarded with power. Still, the old Shah continues running. Eventually, he dies on a remote island in the Caspian Sea, sick, humiliated, and abandoned by his own court. You never even had to kill him yourself. The world starts to change after this. The Muslim world watches in horror. European kings hear whispers of unstoppable horsemen coming from the east. Chinese scribes note that cities disappear from maps almost overnight. But it's not about reputation. It's about control. And you've just conquered the most powerful Muslim empire of Central Asia in a matter of years. It's the single most devastating and strategic campaign since Alexander the Great. But unlike Alexander, you're not building Greek colonies. You're building a global system of tribute, mobility, and shared information. You even establish courier routes that span thousands of miles, where messages fly faster than ever before in human history. The Silk Road doesn't just reopen, it becomes a superhighway for goods, knowledge, and power under Mongol protection. Yet in your private tent, surrounded by maps and advisors, you rarely celebrate. Because to you, this isn't a finish line. It's only the beginning. Section 11, you stand on the edge of the desert again. Only this time, it's not sand, but stone beneath your boots. The wind that once howled across the steppes is quieter here, replaced by the call to prayer, echoing from minarets and the distant roar of terrified cities. You're no longer chasing a single empire. You're chasing the ripple of what you just did to Khwarezm. Because word of your vengeance has spread far beyond Persia. And now, you see a map not as a flat canvas, but as a battlefield stitched with opportunity. The Shah is dead, but his betrayal lingers in your memory like a blade under the skin. So you don't stop. You ride farther west, beyond the Oxus River, through the salt-cracked basins of Transoxiana, toward the outer limits of your enemy's imagination. Your generals, Subutai and Jebei, have already vanished into the unknown, chasing enemies who think they can outrun consequence. This is no longer a war. It's a message to the world. You turn south first to punish those who gave refuge to Khwarazm's broken armies. Cities like Nishapur and Herat thought distance would save them. Instead, you arrive with siege towers and engineers, catapults that hurl burning corpses over their sacred walls. You pound their gates not just with steel, but with the cold logic of your justice. You harbored traitors. Now you inherit their fate. At Merv, the defenders plead for negotiation. They open their gates, but their mercy comes too late. You order one of the most staggering acts of mass slaughter in history. Hundreds of thousands executed, their bodies stacked like cordwood, the city left to rot under the sun. Your men keep count of the dead by piling skulls in geometric pyramids. You don't flinch, because this isn't madness. It's deterrence. Every time you destroy a city, 10 others surrender without a fight. But Subutai and Jebei aren't just razing towns. They're writing a completely new chapter in world strategy. Their pursuit of the Shah leads them through lands where Mongol hooves have never trodden, through the Caspian Basin, the Caucasus Mountains, and deep into the domains of unfamiliar kingdoms. Georgia, Armenia, even the doorstep of the Kievan Rus. These places know nothing of steppe warfare. They believe stone castles, heavy knights, and winter will stop you. They are wrong. In Georgia, Subutai breaks through the mountain passes like thunder crashing through granite. He outmaneuvers armies 4 times his size with speed no one thought possible. They use feigned retreats, splitting formations to lure enemies into traps, then smashing them from the flanks with terrifying precision. A crusader-style coalition forms to stop them. Christian princes, Muslim emirs, steppe warlords, they join forces to face these devil horsemen. And then in 1223 comes the showdown, the Battle of the Kalka River. On one side, a massive Rus army, armored cavalry, archers, infantry, the pride of Slavic resistance. On the other, Subutai and Jebei with a leaner Mongol force, seemingly outnumbered. You'd think the Mongols would retreat. They do, but it's a trap. For 9 straight days, Subutai leads the Rus on a calculated pursuit, feinting, hiding, baiting. And when the Rus grow tired, stretched thin and arrogant, he circles back and annihilates them. Entire units drown in the river, crushed under their own momentum. Their generals are captured and executed under wooden platforms, a Mongol custom where nobles are slowly crushed so their blood doesn't touch the earth. It's psychological warfare, a ritual, a warning, a prophecy. Then Subutai and Jebei simply vanish, pulling back thousands of miles, all the way home, leaving behind only smoke, silence, and fear. No empire in Europe understands what just happened. They think it was an isolated raid, but you know better. Back at your capital near the Onon River, you trace your finger over a sprawling leather map. The West is more vulnerable than it looks. The Slavic kingdoms are fractured. The Islamic world is in shock. The Silk Road is open, and its arteries are beginning to pulse again. You don't just want riches. You want information. So you create an intelligence network, YAM, a postal relay system of mounted couriers who gallop across your empire with sealed messages and military reports. From China to the Caspian, you now receive news in days that once took months. This isn't just power, it's administration on horseback. You start building relay stations every 25 miles, stocked with fresh horses, guards, food, and maps. Couriers carry not only orders, but also tally sticks, inscribed wooden tokens that identify the bearer as acting under your name. No one dares stop them. The effect is staggering. For the first time in history, a single leader knows what is happening across half of Eurasia, almost in real time. But you're not only watching the world, you're standardizing it. You order census taking in conquered cities. You demand inventories of weapons, livestock, craftsmen. You even encourage translations of Chinese, Persian, and Turkic texts into Mongolian, laying the groundwork for cultural exchange. And everywhere you go, you impose one law. Yasa. It governs theft, murder, betrayal, military discipline, even how to drink water when traveling. Break it, and punishment is swift and final. Yet for all your ruthlessness, you remain tolerant of faiths. Buddhists, Christians, Muslims, they're all allowed to worship freely under your rule. You even exempt monks and scholars from taxation, seeing their value to the empire's soul. You become more than a conqueror. You become a philosopher king, surrounded by advisors from every corner of the continent. Chinese engineers, Arab astronomers, Turkic generals, Persian scribes. Your court becomes a cosmopolitan brain trust, as multicultural as any that would come centuries later. Still, your eye drifts west. Your enemies haven't stopped. They're just quiet. But silence, to you, is never peace. It's preparation. And so, as you grow older, your gaze settles beyond the steppe, past rivers, past walls, past crowns. You've already crushed the greatest empire in the Muslim world. You've tasted the edge of Europe. And somewhere deep in your heart, you know you've only just begun to reshape the earth. The blood dries, the smoke thins, and still, you don't stop. You're no longer the boy who watched his father poisoned or the fugitive in the mountains with nothing but a bone knife. You are Genghis Khan, ruler of the largest contiguous empire the world has ever seen. And you know that brute force alone won't keep it together. So you step back from conquest for a moment, not to rest, but to build. You stand on the high steppes of Mongolia, where your yurts flap in the wind and the horizon stretches into infinity, and you begin designing something far more dangerous than an army, a system. Because you realize something your enemies never did. A conqueror who can't administer is just a raider. So you turn your mind to empire. First, you codify your power. The Yasa, once oral tradition and battlefield order, is now refined into a written legal code. It's not divine, not democratic, but it's brutally fair. Steal a horse? Die. Abandon your post? Die. Murder someone? Die. But show loyalty? You'll rise higher than you ever dreamed. This law applies to everyone, Mongol or not. And that's key, because unlike kings who elevate only bloodlines, you elevate merit. You don't care if a man was born a slave or a prince. If he rides well, fights fiercely, and obeys without hesitation, you raise him up. Generals in your armies include Turks, Chinese, Tajiks, and even former enemies. Their loyalty isn't bought by gold, it's earned by respect. You create the four Orloks, the generals you trust most: Subutai, Jelme, Jebe, and Kublai, your warriors of thunder. These men aren't just commanders. They're examples, symbols that loyalty to you can transcend tribe and tongue. Then comes your next genius move, the YAM system. You set up thousands of relay stations across your growing empire, each spaced a day's ride apart. These are staffed with guards, stocked with horses, and ready at all times. Couriers ride with paisa, metal tablets inscribed with your authority. No one dares touch them. In a time when kingdoms wait months for news, you receive updates in days. Intelligence becomes your second sword. And as you spread this network, you begin to impose a new kind of unity across continents. You introduce a standardized script, Uyghur letters reshaped for Mongolian tongues. It allows for records, diplomacy, logistics. It brings literacy to a people once governed by memory and song. You educate your sons and generals, send for Persian secretaries, Chinese advisors, and even Indian mathematicians. You don't just conquer minds, you recruit them. Across your realm, you foster freedom of religion, something unheard of in most of the world. Buddhist lamas debate Christian monks. Muslim scholars advise Mongol governors. You personally summon a Taoist master to your court, curious about alchemy and immortality. Why? Because ideas, like soldiers, can be trained to serve. Even your tax system is radical. Rather than squeezing cities dry, you coordinate assessments, count craftsmen, and ensure each trade, silk, spices, iron, flows with tribute but not ruin. You preserve the economic base of cities, which means your empire keeps growing wealthier, not just bloodier. And speaking of trade, oh, how you resurrect the Silk Road. Before you, the route was a loose thread. After you, it becomes a highway of ambition. Caravans stretch from Beijing to Baghdad, protected by your patrols, taxed by your governors, tracked by your system. Because now you don't just move armies, you move gold, ideas, diplomats, and dreams. In China, you establish communication with scholars in the Jin court. In Persia, you absorb irrigation techniques and astronomy. In the steppes, you introduce siegecraft learned from Han engineers. The cross-pollination of civilizations, once accidental, now becomes policy. And yet, While the empire grows outward, you look inward too. You gather your family, not just blood sons, but adopted brothers, generals, wives, and begin the most delicate task of all, succession. You don't want civil war after your death. You've seen too many empires crumble that way. So you divide the realm into uluses, regional zones of influence, each assigned to a son or trusted general, but all under the command of a single great Khan. Your eldest, Jochi, troubles you. Rumors linger about his paternity, and while he is brave, his brothers doubt him. So you place your faith in Ogedei, the second son, moderate, clever, and less likely to provoke jealousy. This decision, made under the weight of blood and empire, will shape history. Because you're not just securing the now, you're engineering the future. You establish a council of nobles, the Kurultai, as a formal body to confirm succession and debate policy. It doesn't make you less powerful. It makes your rule legitimate. And with that, you step back, not from leadership, but from constant war. You spend your time in Karakoram, the beating heart of your world. The capital isn't built of stone palaces. It's mobile, flexible, alive. Here, you host delegations from the Caliphate, from Rus, from India. You play chess with Persian nobles and listen to throat singers chant your deeds beneath the stars. But make no mistake, your sword never dulls. When you hear whispers of resistance in the West, you sharpen your plans. When Chinese rulers grow defiant again, you prepare new campaigns. When an insult arrives from Korea, you send a warning wrapped in steel. You are the center of a storm that knows no borders. You are the architect of a machine so vast, so interconnected, that no city, king, or merchant can ignore its rhythm. And yet, you still speak like a man of the steppes. You still eat dried meat, drink fermented mare's milk, and sleep in a yurt. Your throne is light enough to be carried. Your authority is rooted not in marble, but in motion, because you were never meant to sit still. You were meant to move and make the world move with you. Vast Mongolian sky, its silence broken only by the distant neighing of horses and the low hum of campfires. The war drums are quiet, for now. But in your mind, the most important campaign still rages. The fight for your empire's future. You've fought dozens of battles, razed cities, crushed dynasties. But this is different. This isn't about swords, it's about sons. And your sons are not all the same. There's Jochi, your eldest. A formidable general, calm and strategic. But he was born after Berte's abduction, and even though you raised him as your own, the whispers never stopped. Some nobles doubt his blood. Worse, so does your second son, Chagatai. Bold, fiery, reckless. He says aloud what others only think, Jochi isn't one of us. Then there's Ogedei, steady, thoughtful, a natural mediator. He doesn't burn with ambition, but that's why you trust him. And lastly, Tolui, your youngest. A warrior through and through, loyal, dangerous, but too young, not yet ready to rule. So you make the hardest call of your life. You choose Ogedei. It's not the obvious decision. It's the one that ensures balance. The one that can unite the others, or at least delay the storm. You tell your generals, your blood brothers, your council, and you summon your sons, not to ask, but to declare. The meeting is tense. Jochi doesn't object, but he doesn't smile either. Chagatai stays silent, arms crossed. Tolui accepts it like a soldier takes an order. But you? You feel the weight of centuries pressing on your chest. Still, the empire must stand, and Ogedei must inherit its bones. You divide the realm into uluses, territorial commands. Jochi gets the western steppe, from the Irtish to the Caspian. Chagatai takes Central Asia, Samarkand to Kashgar. Ogedei holds Mongolia itself, the seat of power, and Tolui stays close, under your watchful eye. But this isn't just about geography. This is about legacy. You train them like you trained your army, through hardship and trust. You bring them into your councils, have them observe justice being carried out, let them command raids under your name. You don't coddle them, you mold them. And yet, you can't mold fate. Word arrives. Jochi is ill? Some say it's grief, others say it's poison. Some claim he died by your order, though no proof ever emerges. But the truth is bitter enough. He dies before you. You don't weep. You stare out over the river and simply say, the arrow has flown. Your grandson Batu, Jochi's son, inherits the Western Command, and you see something in Batu that reminds you of yourself. Restless, calculating, patient. Then come the grandsons. Kublai, Hulagu, Monkey, all born into yurts but destined to rule cities. You watch them chase dogs across campgrounds and ride horses before they can walk, and you wonder, will they carry the fire, or will they be consumed by it? Still, you prepare. You meet with scribes and generals, updating the Yasa. You send messengers to Baghdad, Delhi, even the fading Roman Empire in Constantinople. Let them know the Khan watches. And then China calls again. The Jin dynasty, bloodied but unbroken, defies you one final time. You mount your horse, gray in your beard, slower in your joints, but no less deadly. You lead your army once more through forests and mountains, and you win. Again. But this time, the victory is hollow, because the fire that once roared in your chest now flickers. You fall ill in camp. Some say it was from a fall off your horse. Others say an arrow pierced your back and you concealed the wound. Some say it was a woman's dagger in a tent. No one truly knows. But you know one thing. Your end has come. You summon your sons. One final time. You speak not as a conqueror, but as a father. You tell them, if you must quarrel, do it in silence. The world watches. And then, with the wind whispering outside your tent and the smell of wood smoke in your lungs, you pass into legend. But your generals do something strange. They keep your death a secret. Why? Because unfinished battles remain. Enemies must still believe the Khan is watching. So your body is returned to Mongolia in silence. And your funeral is a story of its own. Legends say that the soldiers who escorted your body killed everyone they met along the way to keep the location secret. Some say a river was diverted to flow over your grave. Others say a forest was planted on top. And the soldiers? All executed after the burial. No one knows exactly where you rest. And maybe that's how it should be, because your body died. But your empire didn't. Your sons take the reins. Your generals continue the campaigns. Your laws hold. Your name echoes across deserts, across jungles, across snow-capped mountains. You went from a boy with nothing, no food, no name, no allies, to a man who bent the world to his will. Your story ends here. But the world you created? It's just beginning. Your empire stretches from the icy forests of Siberia to the warm sands of the Persian Gulf, from the Yellow River to the edge of the Black Sea. You are gone, but your shadow still gallops across the earth. The generals you trained take your last commands like gospel. And your sons, especially Ogadai, know what must be done. The dream of Genghis Khan must not die with the man. The funeral rites have been completed in absolute secrecy. Your grave remains unknown, buried, they say, beneath a river, flattened by 1,000 hooves, sealed by silence. But there's no time for mourning. The world will not pause just because its greatest storm has passed. Ogadai ascends to the throne of the great Khan. You chose him not for ambition, but for balance. And now, that wisdom bears fruit. He calls a Kurultai, the grand council of Mongol leaders, and they ride in from every corner of the known world. Warriors from the snowy Urals, horsemen from the Gobi, traders from Samarkand, and even Chinese scholars who now wear Mongol robes. The air hums with tension. Everyone knows this empire will either fracture or fly. Ogadai speaks calmly but with strength. He confirms your plans, reaffirms the Yasa, and declares what must come next, total conquest of the Jin dynasty. And the Jin? They're still clinging to their last cities like ivy on dying trees. They had outlasted Chinese dynasties before, but this time, they face a machine. Ogadai unleashes siege engineers, Persian catapults, Chinese sappers, and a river of Mongol cavalry. In 1234, the Jin dynasty collapses into dust. But Ogadai doesn't stop. He turns west. The next target is a legend, Europe. You had always eyed the West. Now your sons and grandsons pick up that thread. Batu Khan, Jochi's son, leads the charge. He's not just proving his own worth. He's proving that Jochi's bloodline belongs. With him are two fierce grandsons of yours, Subutai, the old general with 1,000 campaigns behind him, and Gayuk, Ogadai's son, learning how to carve an empire with cold steel. In 1241, they slam into Eastern Europe like a thunderclap. Poland burns. Hungary collapses. The knighted armies of Europe, plate-armored, cross-bearing, unprepared, are shattered by cavalry maneuvers they can't comprehend. Mongol horses outrun messengers. Mongol scouts appear where no one expects. At the Battle of Mohi, the flower of Hungarian nobility is wiped out in a single day. Panic ripples across Christendom. Kings fortify castles. Popes pray. The Mongols are coming. And then they stop, not because they're defeated, not because of winter. They stop because Ogadai dies. And suddenly, The future hangs in the balance. The Mongol code demands that all nobles return to elect a new great Khan. Batu Khan pulls back. The armies leave as suddenly as they arrived, like a storm fading over the horizon. Europe sighs in relief, but the memory never fades. Back in the east, the sons of Genghis squabble. Chaghatay's line refuses to back Batu. Gayuk, Ogeday's son, wants power. Tolui's sons, Mönke, Kublai, Arik Boke, begin to stir. What you feared now unfolds, ambition without unity. Still, conquest continues. Your grandson Hulagu marches into the Middle East. He destroys the fabled assassins of Alamut, leveling the mountain fortress that defied empires. Then he turns to Baghdad, the jewel of Islamic civilization. In 1258, the city falls. The House of Wisdom is looted. The Tigris runs black with ink and red with blood. The Abbasid Caliph is trampled to death beneath Mongol horses. It's one of the most brutal sackings in world history. But even this victory has a cost. The Mongols push too far into the heart of Syria, only to be stopped by Mamluk warriors at the Battle of Ain Jalut. It's the first real Mongol defeat in open battle, and suddenly, the myth begins to crack. Back east, Kublai Khan dreams bigger than any of his kin. Not just conquest, rule. He wears Chinese silks, studies Confucian law, builds canals and palaces. He's not just a Mongol Khan, he declares himself Emperor of China, founding the Yuan dynasty. In 1271, the Mongols become the official rulers of all China. You, the child who once slept hungry in a rat-infested yurt, now rules the greatest civilization on earth, through your blood. But this pivot divides your legacy. The Mongol Empire splinters into 4 khanates: the Golden Horde in Russia, the Chagatai Khanate in Central Asia, the Ilkhanate in Persia, and the Yuan dynasty in China. They still speak your name, still revere your law, but unity is gone. And slowly, piece by piece, the empire begins to erode. The Golden Horde adapts to Islam, blending with Turkic cultures. The Yuan dynasty becomes increasingly Sinicized. The Ilkhanate dissolves into war and rebellion, and soon, all that's left are echoes. But don't mistake decline for failure, because in every land you touched, you left fingerprints. Postal systems that stretched thousands of miles. Trade routes protected by fear and law. Religious tolerance written into code. A reordering of the world, politically, economically, spiritually. Your story wasn't just blood and war. It was transformation. You, Genghis Khan, slave boy turned conqueror, reshaped the earth more than any emperor or king before you. And your children, though divided, carried that fire farther than any tribe in human history. You would not recognize the lands that now whisper your name. Centuries have passed, empires have risen and fallen, maps have been redrawn countless times, but still, your story echoes. You see, even after your sons and grandsons turned east, west, and south, the world never forgot the fury of your thunder. Your empire, once forged from ash and ambition, still shapes the paths of nations. Look at Russia. The Golden Horde, your Western Khanate, ruled its forests and steppes for 2 centuries. Moscow rose not in spite of your invasion, but because of it. The Russian princes who once paid tribute to your descendants learned statecraft, military discipline, and tax collection under the shadow of Mongol rule. And when they finally cast off the yoke, they built their own empire using your blueprint. The czars who expanded Russia across Siberia, all the way to the Pacific, did so by mimicking Mongol strategies, territorial ambition without limits. Cross to Central Asia, where your Chagatai Khanate held strong for generations. Even after it fractured, its legacy lived on in the Turkic-Mongol culture of cities like Samarkand, Bukhara, and Tashkent. There, the seeds of Timur's empire were planted. Timur, another warrior born on the steppe, styled himself not only as your successor, but as your spiritual twin. His scribes wrote your name with reverence. His armies, too, rode with your ruthless clarity. Farther south in India, your legacy took another form. Your descendant Babur, a man of Mongol blood and Persian taste, carved the Mughal Empire out of the Indian subcontinent. His dynasty ruled for centuries, producing emperors like Akbar and Shah Jahan, yes, the one who built the Taj Mahal. From a Mongol root sprang Indo-Persian greatness. Even in China, where your Yuan dynasty eventually crumbled beneath rebellion, your impact lingers. You opened China to the world. You welcomed Persian engineers, Arab astronomers, and Venetian traders like Marco Polo, who returned to Europe with tales of your splendor. The Ming may have pushed your heirs out, but they inherited the roads, institutions, and boldness you left behind. And across the Silk Road, from the Caspian to the Pacific, the Pax Mongolica, the Mongol peace, ushered in a rare moment in history when bandits fled and caravans thrived. Goods, people, and ideas traveled faster under your banners than they would again for centuries. Gunpowder? It reached Europe through the Mongol trade network. So did Black Plague. Yes, your empire both accelerated civilization and carried death. And yet, you were more than a destroyer. You were a builder, a visionary. You banned the kidnapping of women. You promoted religious freedom in an age when burning heretics was sport. You elevated the poor. You codified law. You shattered feudal hierarchies, not just for spoils, but for efficiency. Even your harshest critics, those who called you a barbarian, admit you governed better than kings cloaked in silk. You had no castles, no grand cathedrals, no throne of gold. Just the wind in your face, the earth beneath your hooves, and an empire born of will. Still, nothing lasts forever. By the late 14th century, the Mongol Khanates had withered or merged into new kingdoms. Your direct line faded from power. And yet, in every corner of the world, someone bears your mark. Genetic studies estimate that 1 in every 200 men alive today carries your Y chromosome, a statistical echo of the empire you carved with bow and blade. But numbers don't capture the whole of it. What endures is the myth, the awe, the sheer improbability of your journey, from shackled boy to sovereign of the world. It's the story of a child abandoned on the steppe who refused to die, a teenager with no clan who swore revenge and achieved unity, a warrior who turned grudges into campaigns, friends into kings, and enemies into dust. You were not born great. You became great, inch by inch, betrayal by betrayal, victory by brutal victory. And when the world stood in your path, you didn't ask for permission. You conquered it. Finish the script, enjoy listening, and subscribe to the channel for the next video. Cool down segment, 300 words below. So, what did we just hear? A slave boy abandoned and betrayed became the architect of the largest contiguous empire in human history. Not through magic, not through divine birthright, but through sheer will, ruthless calculation, and an unshakable vision. He took a fractured people and gave them purpose. He took a lawless land and gave it order. And he didn't just conquer, he transformed. Genghis Khan was more than a warlord. He was a system builder, a cultural blender, a global accelerator. Today, we live in a world shaped partly by the decisions he made 800 years ago. The languages we speak, the borders we draw, even the highways we travel, many trace back to the empire of the Khan. Of course, history is never simple. There was blood, atrocities, cities turned to ash, but there was also vision, justice, progress. And that's why we tell stories like this. Because sometimes, to understand where we're going, we have to follow the hoofprints of those who shaped where we are. So if this journey stirred you, like the video, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more epic stories from the turning points of history. Thanks for listening, and until next time, ride on. Script complete.